Hi, and welcome back to the Paraunity project. I'm Quiva. Today we're going to be looking at the question, people who worked in haunted places. What was your wildest encounter? So I actually got other people to pull these stories for me, so I have not seen anything that I am about to read. And I hope they're good, so we're going to be reading them together today. So this is from Aloha Girl. My grandmother and I were waiting in the ICU for my grandfather to get out of heart surgery back in the early 1980s. There was only one other family, and they were visiting their extremely ill mother. We were each entertaining ourselves quietly, some reading, my grandmother was knitting, others were writing. All was silent in the little room. We had earlier mentioned that the generic grade school looking clock wasn't accurate. About an hour goes by, and randomly the clock hands start whirring very fast, clockwise, then stopping, and then rapidly went backwards and stopped. We all looked at each other to confirm that we had all just experienced the same thing. The clock continued to randomly spin forwards or backwards at the oddest times. After my grandfather was in recovery, I mentioned to the nurse that this clock was acting weirdly. She said, "Oh, we know about it, and we've had it checked out and once had it replaced. It continues to randomly spin forward or backwards. We've gotten used to it." I said, "Do you know why it does that?" And she said, "Oh, it's just the ghosts of those who've passed that are messing with the living." Another nurse at the nurse's station piped up and said it was a former patient of hers named Ben trying to liven up our waiting. If it disturbed us as too much, all we need to say was, "That's enough, Ben," and that he would stop. The next day it happened again, and I spoke out loud into the room to Ben as advised, and it stopped. This all happened at a hospital in Portland, and there were 6 to 8 people who witnessed it both times. Being in a situation where you are not expecting anything paranormal to happen, I can imagine that every single person in that room was creeped out, and the fact that it stopped when she asked Ben to stop was even worse for anybody who hasn't dealt with the paranormal before. It's a good story. So back in my teens, there used to be an awful lot of shows in the theatre in my town, and I did a lot of like the booking office. I did the backstages. I used to do a load of bits around the shows to help out. And this one summer, I had put myself up for 2 weeks working in the booking office, taking, calls and whatever, booking tickets for people as needed. But it was a very slow job, and there wasn't really, anything to be doing. So you just kind of sit in the little booth and just kind of hope that somebody would come in that day. Well, I got more than I bargained for. I remember a bunch of my friends came up. Now, in fairness, they were all also involved with the theatre, and we all decided to go into the actual theatre on our own in the dark because none of us knew where the light switch was. And I believe it was someone heard a whisper in their ear like a boo, and they went running out. And I went in and I sat down. I used my torch to see where the seat was. And I stayed in there, and I ended up being the last person in there on my own. And I remember, so obviously you're sitting towards the stage, you're looking down, and you can hear the footsteps of people around you. And I always knew I was into ghosts, so I was like, I need to see how long I can stay in here witnessing all of this. And so I could hear the footsteps, and I could see shadows moving on stage, but I couldn't make anything out. It is pitch dark in a theatre when there's no lights on. It's a different type of dark. So eventually I went back, and I went back down to the booking office, and I waited, and all my friends left, and I was there alone. And I knew I was there alone, and I had made sure that all of the rooms out the back were completely locked up, so there was no other entrance into this building other than the front door. And all of a sudden, so as you're walking to the theatre, there's the doors here, straight on in front of you from the front door. So front door, theatre doors. And beside the theatre doors, there's another double doors, which leads to a very long corridor the whole way down to backstage. And I remember hearing the doors from the corridor open up and slam shut. Now, in fairness, they were fire doors, but you'd have to push them open to, for them to open. They weren't automated or anything, so they pushed open by themselves. They slammed back shut, and then someone ran down that corridor. And I was like, oh shit. And I still had another 6 hours to wait there. I believe, in all honesty, the ghosts of the theatre decided that it was their moment to try and make me scared because I was alone. But yeah, that gave me a big scare. And that theatre is somewhere I'd love to go back and investigate, but unfortunately I don't believe I can. But fingers crossed, it's on the bucket list. So, okay, the next story is from The Other Ordinary. I worked in my teens in a fish and chip shop. Each Friday night, I was working on my own until midnight, when the owner or their relative would come up and help me close up. During the first few shifts, until I learnt the ropes, I wore my glasses. But I was a vain teenager, and I could manage without them, so I ran the shift 6 to 12 p.m. on my own, and I stopped wearing them. Then each Friday, like clockwork, just before 11 p.m. each night, a little old man would go by and say, "Night, Nipper," as though he had come out of the neighbouring pub. I used to put my hair in a cap, so probably thought that I was a boy. He never came in, and when I think back, he never looked in. Kinda just called out as he was walking by. My dad had been the mayor of Shanklin for a little while, so I had a lot of older people who would say hi, and I never knew who they were, so I thought nothing of it. This Friday night ritual went on until I left. Years later, I was clearing out my dad's things when he passed away, and there was a picture of the old man. I asked my mum who he was. She said, "That's Hector. You remember him from when you were little. He lived at the bottom of the road. He called you Nipper as you had short hair, and you would get cross as you thought Nipper was for calling boys, but it's an Islander way of saying young one." I asked, "Did Hector move?" My mum was confused why I was so interested. Said, "No, he passed away when you were 6 or 7. I think he had a heart attack one evening in town." I like this story. I really like this story. It's very sweet. It also feels like, I don't know how to say it, like homely, I guess. The idea of like loved ones or family members or people you just knew being around and still being active in your life. This story is from D Forever Man. So, not my story, but one was told to me by my friend in the early 90s. We were in the army, stationed in Mannheim, Germany. The buildings on our post were World War II barracks. One building was just used for storage, so it was empty most of the time. My friend, I'll call him Chris for clarity, was a driver for the command staff. That meant that when he wasn't driving them around, he was open to do all kinds of BS little jobs. One day he had to get some folding chairs from the storage building. Chris came to me just as I was going to lunch and he was all shaken up. He said the building was empty, but he kept hearing whispers in German and seeing little shadows. He was genuinely scared to go back in and get the chairs and asked me to go with him. I didn't because I was about to meet my girlfriend at the time for lunch. Chris did get the chairs, but he was adamant that the ghosts of World War II German soldiers were haunting the place. I can't say if it's true, but he wasn't a joker kind of guy, and he didn't scare easily. Poor Chris. You abandoned Chris. That's terrible. Poor Chris. Like, maybe it's just me because, curiosity killed a cat and I need to see all things paranormal for myself. But I would have gone with poor Chris. That's really cruel. The next story is from Deleted. So they've deleted their account. Unfortunately, it won't be linked below. I worked at a haunted house that was an old Victorian era one. And I remember one time I was one of the last people inside, so I had to navigate the house in almost darkness. The entire time I was upstairs, I kept on hearing footsteps like someone was following me, so I'd naturally turn around and no one was there. Except one time I turned around and saw something gaunt and emaciated looking peeking at me from around the corner, and I took off. The scariest part was that when me and my buddy were leaving, he asked me why I was taking my time upstairs and staring out the window. I'm so glad I stopped volunteering there. God, by any chance on this earth that this person sees this video and they hear me saying I want to investigate this place, let me know where it is, please. I'll be over with my team, no problem. So this is from Wrong Tapestry. I was the kitchen manager of a pub in a small Ritchie retirement town. The building of the pub was probably from the 1800s. I would get to work about 30 to 45 minutes before my opening server or waitress would get there. Every day I'd open the back door, come in and lock it because I would be in the basement getting stock from the walk-in. I would always hear the server unlock the door and hear footsteps, then her voice at the top of the basement stairs asking if I was there. I'd yell up the stairs that I was, and then bring up my first load of stock and have a quick coffee and a smoke with her before we continued on with our days. One morning, I got to work, unlocked the door, turned the lights on, locked the door behind me, and headed downstairs. I was busy getting stock and I heard footsteps above. The ceiling was not finished in the basement, just support beams and old ass wood that you could see the dirt or dust sometimes falling from the ceiling when somebody was walking around. I yelled up the stairs, "Hey, I'll be up in a sec," and heard the footsteps stop and walk back towards the kitchen / the back door. I thought it was weird she didn't say anything, and I didn't hear the kitchen door close. I figured maybe she didn't hear me or forgot something in her car. I made my way up the stairs into the kitchen and I peeked into the bar area, and I didn't see her. I went back to the back door and it was locked. I was confused and unlocked the door and stepped outside. Her car wasn't there, nor was the owner. She pulled in right as I was about to head in. I laughed and asked if she forgot something. She looked at me confused and asked what I was talking about. I explained to her what had happened in the basement / hearing the footsteps. She got very spooked and said she had had multiple strange encounters prior to me working there because the other kitchen staff would get there later and she would always be the first in. She said it stopped when I was hired. We thought that she was just going crazy before. Another separate time, a while after this, I heard someone call my name in the basement, very clearly and with an urgent tone. Following this, the overhead light went out and there was a very loud stomp right above my head. I went outside until the server got there. Then this one is from Adrienne, 27. I work for a school that was built in the 1800s, which again is very on theme for this entire video. Since I'm regular staff and not teaching faculty, I work in the summer. Given that fact, besides the handful of custodians, there aren't really any other people in the building with me. One day I had to meet a parent at our main entrance to drop off some forms, and on my way back to the office I was admiring what a great job our custodians had done polishing the floors, and I mean the floors were gleaming. As I was walking and marvelling at the shiny floor, I saw a boy about 6 years old wearing sandy coloured shorts and a white short sleeve button down and shiny brown ankle boots running down the hall. The weird thing was that the child I saw wasn't in the hall but reflected on the floor, kind of how you would see a reflection looking into a pond. It was very eerie, unexplainable experience. And since I'm a chicken, I don't admire the floors much after they've been polished anymore. This one is from Firewood Rabbit. Wow, do I have so many stories. Recently, I worked at a Mexican restaurant that was in a building from 1890. There was more than one spirit/entity there, and every staff member had seen, felt, or heard something. Some of those experiences have been shared at the same time. I won't get into everything, but one particular day I cleaned all but one picture frame I couldn't reach, and the angry woman who haunted the place knocked it off the wall. She pulled my hair that day and also tried to close the ice machine door on my head while I was scooping ice. The motion detector cameras in the bar actually caught her face, and the picture frame incident too. Love to see that video. If she had access, maybe I should reach out to these people and try and get access to these clips. But that one's really interesting. That one is really cool. So with that, that was my last story from Reddit. This is one I'd love to do again. This is a video that I will probably continue to do, because it was very interesting getting to see perspectives of the paranormal from all over the world. And with that being said, that is all I have for you today. We're back. I am trying to get into a more regular schedule of filming, so I actually have quite a few videos all planned out at the same time that I'm going to film and edit, then release. So if you're down for that, please subscribe, leave a comment down below just to say hi, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.